It's been pretty miserable lately, and the ocean's really wild and angry. So I thought I'd stay home and get myself organised for perhaps the next trip.
Sunglasses, I've got the user manual and some paper maps, my GoPro, some sunscreen, a towel. I've even got a cherry ripe in here.
If you're like me, your jet ski's front storage bin is probably overflowing with stuff. Apart from the required emergency kit, there's a heap of other loose items floating around. So rather than having everything loose and disorganised, I kind of figured I would group some of the more important items together. That way, if I ever break down or get stranded somewhere, all my essentials will be together in one bag that I can easily grab. Offshore yachties often call this their ditch bag or grab bag, and it contains all their essentials if they ever need to abandon ship. Now, I'm not going to be crossing any oceans, so my ditch bag doesn't have to be a full-on survival kit. And I already have a small tool bag under the rear seat on my jet ski, and a first aid kit up front. So I don't need to duplicate them, but I want my ditch bag to have all the other important items that would otherwise rattle around and clutter the storage bin. Well, the first thing I'm going to need is some sort of container or bag to put everything in. Dry bags are great for this because not only are they watertight, but you can also seal some air inside so they'll float if ever dropped. Now, I'm kinda torn here. Space is precious, so I don't want to use an excessively large dry bag that takes up heaps of room, but I still want it to fit my emergency kit, which I store in this pasta container. This 5-litre dry bag is highly visible and would be almost perfect, except with the pasta container inside, I could only manage 2 top rolls. The WWDBA and the IDBA both recommend a minimum of 3 rolls to properly seal a dry bag. By the way, if you ever get the chance to go to one of these organisations' conferences, they're incredible. These guys know how to party. This bigger 10-litre bag seemed to be the best compromise. Although it's twice the volume, most is due to its extra length, which will be removed once it's rolled down 5 or 6 times. So it's almost as compact and far less likely to leak. And it also has a full-length window, which is really handy. Okay, so now with my dry bag selected, I want to carefully choose what to include in my ditch bag and not overload it with unnecessary items. Depending on where you ride, there may be specific emergency equipment that you need to carry by law. In Queensland, Australia, where I live, what you legally have to carry is a little complicated. There is both required and recommended items, and exactly what you need varies depending on the waterway classification, how far offshore you'll be going, and if you'll be operating at night. Confusing, hey? To cover all situations, I need to take a torch, a V-sheet, 4 flares, and a personal location beacon. I keep my PLB tethered to my life jacket, along with my VHF radio. But the remaining items I keep in a plastic pasta container. A pasta-sized container is perfect for securely fitting a folded V-sheet, 4 flares, and a small AA torch. Now you could leave it at that, but there are a few extra things worth squeezing into the pasta container. The first is a photocopy of your driver's license. In some states, it's a requirement to carry your license while boating or jet skiing, but regardless, it's a good idea to take a photocopy. On this sheet, you can also write your next of kin's details and the contact details for the local Coastguard or Marine Rescue Services. Squeezing a small pen into the container is also a good idea and has come in handy a few times. I also like to take 2 spare drain plugs. That way, if you head out for the day and they're missing, you can avert a disaster. The final thing I like to include in the pasta container is a hose adapter to fit the flush port on my jet ski. So often, I'll get home to flush the jet ski and I can't find one. Rather than pull apart the shed, it's great to have one in the pasta container as a backup. Okay, so the pasta container's full and goes into the ditch bag, but what else do I need? Well, getting stranded by a falling tide is an easy situation to find yourself in. If you're marooned on a beach, or worse still a sandbar, and have to wait half a day in the blazing sun for the tide to come back in, there's 2 things you're really going to appreciate. The first is sunscreen, and the second is a bottle of water. Now, I'm not sure if putting a bottle of water inside a dry bag is the smartest idea, but I've certainly done worse. Okay, so is there anything else worth including in the ditch bag? Well, with so many of us relying on our phones for navigation and communication, a flat phone battery could spell disaster. For this reason, carrying a small power bank is well worthwhile, and they're so cheap these days. Just remember to occasionally charge it up, so it's not completely dead when you need it. And for a few dollars, I also think a simple compass is worth having. You can easily get disorientated on the water, especially if visibility is poor. A simple compass will help in these situations and get you heading back to shore. Some people also recommend carrying hose pinch clamps, so if you or a friend ever break down and require a tow, you can crimp the cooling lines to reduce the risk of water entering the engine. I like to oil the metal hinge and store them in a Ziploc bag so they don't rust and seize up. Well, I think that covers most things. Some people will also carry a tow rope and fire extinguisher. And if you're going on a big trip, some people might also consider taking spare parts such as fuses and spark plugs. Taking an extra lanyard and Immobiliser key is also worth considering, because without these, you're not going anywhere. Now, before rolling up your ditch bag and heading off, it makes sense to also throw in your phone, car keys and wallet. That way, when you get back to the ramp, you know exactly where everything is. Well, let me know in the comments below if there's anything I've missed. I hope this has given you a few good ideas. Thanks for watching, hang in there, and I'll see you next time.